From 9 on Your Side Sports, Cincinnati's longest-running sports talk show on television. This is Sports of All Sorts with Reggie Wilson.
What up? Welcome to Sports of All Sorts. That's a wrap on 2019 for the Bengals, and Cincinnati is officially on the clock for the 2020 NFL Draft. And if you watched that Heisman Trophy winning quarterback for LSU last night, the future looks bright. But first things first, there's a football game to be played Sunday afternoon. It's the Battle of Ohio. Bengals hosting the Browns in the last game of the season. First quarter, Bengals down 7. Joe Mixon, have a day. I'm old enough to remember when Joe had 10 carries for 2 yards. Breaks this one for 41, and with that run, he goes over 1,000 for the second straight season. Remarkable considering how he started. Andy Dalton, playing possibly his last game as a Bengal, hooks up with C.J. Uzomah for 16 of 28 for 190 yards today. Game tied at 7. Darius Phillips had an interesting day, burned a couple times on some touchdowns, but this the first of 2 interceptions. Zach Taylor gave him a game ball in the locker room. Leads to this. Smoking Joe gets the push in for the touchdown, but puts the home team up 6. Always a good sign when he's dancing. Actually goes over 1,100 yards today, just 31 yards shy of his total last season. Andy adds on. Can't find anybody open, so he does it himself. Wins the race to the pylon. Colorful play from QB1 today. He had the fans chanting his name. Puts the Bengals up 2 scores. Let's go to the fourth. 7-point game. Mama, there goes that man. Joe Mixon goes in again. Career high, 162 yards. He also got a game ball. Browns hung around, though. Baker Mayfield trying to make something happen late, but he is picked off by B.W. Webb, and that is the ball game. Bengals win 33-23, snapping a 10-game AFC North losing streak, finishing the year 2-14, tied for worst in franchise history.
It's really the game we've been waiting to play. We've been expecting to play all year. When you hear me say that I've enjoyed our preparation, I've liked our preparation leading up to games and the mentality of our players. That's what it has looked like every game of the season. We just haven't put it all together.
There's been a lot of support from this city for, not only what I've done on the field, but what we've done off of it. And the city's meant a lot to us, to my family. I was talking about it earlier in the week, but I've spent my whole married life here. Our 3 kids have been raised here, so the city's meant a lot to us, and so it feels good to get the appreciation from the fans chanting my name.
I got my Bengals with me tonight. Jim Breech, the Bengals' all-time leading scorer, and Rodney Heath, Bengals cornerback for 3 seasons. Fellas, thanks for taking the time as always. How we doing?
Very well. Merry Christmas to everybody.
Oh, yeah. Merry Christmas. Merry New Year, as Marshawn Lynch said.
Yeah.
So what did you think of the Bengals' performance today?
I enjoyed it. It's a win. They doubled their win total today. It was outstanding. I'm excited to see one. Darius Phillips comes up with a couple of interceptions, and he covers pretty well. The offensive line is creating some holes. They're doing some things. Fred Johnson has gotten to play quite a bit. Here's an undrafted free agent. He's playing. He's playing pretty well. So
Hopkins got paid yesterday.
Hopkins got paid, so they've got some positives going on there. Pratt is getting to play, and he's really showing up. So Phillips and Pratt on the defensive side, young guys. I really like what I'm seeing in a lot of those areas. And 30 points 2 games in a row. They struggled to get to 20 for most of the year. So that's all positive. Reminds me a little bit of the 80 to 81 season. We couldn't score late in the year. People started to get used to the system on offense. Scored some points late, and it just carried over into 81. And now these guys are getting assimilated to this offense, running the ball. From that Ram game on, they've run the ball unbelievably well.
Yeah. So just kind of getting some good energy going for next year.
It was a fun game today to watch.
For sure. Speaking of some good energy, Joe Mixon, what a turnaround this season. Career high rushing yards today. It's crazy because, like I said in the highlight, I remember against Jacksonville, he had 10 carries for 2 yards. The fact that he just became 31 yards shy of his total last season is crazy.
It's amazing what he would have done if he would have been on in the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
I will echo what you said. One of the things is, as they get familiar with some things, get guys in position. Also, with the offense getting the rhythm and being able to understand that running the ball is what they can hang their hats on.
Right.
And, really get Joe going like that, that's going to open up a lot of things for Andy and the rest of the offense. Also take a lot of pressure off the offensive line, and eat up the clock. And therefore the defense, when they get out there, they can, like as you saw today, a lot of pressure that they got out to Mayfield today. And, it was a fun game. And I think that was one of the key things that I saw also. There was a youth movement in a sense where you got a lot of guys that they called up and had an opportunity to, like Phillips, to make some plays. And it was very bright to see that.
It's interesting. They gave up 1 sack, whereas the Bengals had 6 sacks.
Wow.
Put pressure on Mayfield all game long. And you looked at, they were just coming.
Getting after it.
And they are. Carlos Dunlop, I'm just like, he's got, he hit the fountain of youth or something, the way he's played these last 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lawson, yeah.
Yeah, Lawson's.
Yeah.
Couple guys. He could have had a couple more interceptions.
Yeah.
Billings, he had his chance. He's right there.
I know.
And Lawson hits him right in the gut. Although that was unexpected, I'm sure, to get a rifle from like 6 yards away.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I do want to talk a little bit about Andy. So this could have been his last game as a Bengal. Couple touchdowns today. He played like he was having fun out there. What do you feel like his legacy is, if that is it for him here in Cincinnati?
Well, I really think, you got to see where he came from. He winning his quarterback, if we can look at that way, as far as, his success that he's had. And, it's a testament to what he has done and how he's won and how he carried himself. His legacy to me is just the gentleman that he is, and the personality that he has, and what he gives back to the community, and what he represents as a family man, and how he handles himself even through adversity. You saw that through the season, and he was right there. And then when his number was called again, he stepped right in, and he did it with no issues, and he just went out there and led the way that he would represent himself. Proud of him.
Yeah, I think it's a total class act. People always wanted, we want a different quarterback. But in their draft class, Cam Newton was the only guy that was still starting. And now you see he's even down and hurt and struggling. And Andy's still playing, and playing at a pretty high level. I think back to 2011, literally they did not have a quarterback. They drafted a guy in the 2nd round. They drafted A.J. Green in the 1st round. And they were picked to go 0-16 that year by several correspondents. And yet they make the playoffs 5 consecutive years. Unfortunately, people remember the non-playoff wins, which is unfortunate. But overall, I just have so much respect for the way he has handled himself, particularly how he handled being demoted and then coming back and still playing at a high level.
Yeah. Well, Jim, Rodney, it's been fun this year. I can't believe it's already come to a close, but it's been a lot of fun talking football with you all, and hopefully we get a chance to do it again really soon, talking about good times and not a lot of these losses that we did a lot this season.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
All right.
Good. Yes, sounds good.
All right. Well, Jim, Rodney, thanks again for taking the time.
No problem.
And coming up, we're talking college football playoffs with Mike Daniels. So stay right there. Welcome back. Bowl season is in full swing, and we have a national championship coming our way. Joining me to talk college football is Princeton head football coach Mike Daniels. Coach, how you doing?
Doing wonderful. I appreciate you having me. It's an exciting time.
Oh, yeah.
College football is coming to an end, and these games, the playoffs and the bowl games are exciting. I tell you what, I've enjoyed watching them.
Oh, man, me too. So let's talk last night, the 2 playoff games last night. LSU. So they were dealt some tough news, terrible news beforehand. The offensive coordinator lost his daughter-in-law right before the game. And so he called a game inspired. He wanted to win for his son, who had just lost his wife. Tough, very tough. But then Joe Burrow comes out, throws 8 touchdown passes. What did you think of that performance from LSU and from Joe?
The words I use is historic.
Yeah.
It was not only from a record standpoint, but when you watch the precision of how that offense operated and how they just keep getting better. I mean, they are literally one of the best offenses in college football history, and so it was a joy to watch how dominant they were, even with a running back that was banged up. Just Joe being able to have pocket presence, and being able to move around, and those receivers are elite. And so when you have elite receivers, an elite scheme, and a guy that's hot like that, Joe's a special dude.
Man, it's crazy because I remember like those Les Miles days where it seemed like they were beating teams 6-3 or something like that. Offense not doing much. Now to them scoring touchdowns, they scored 63 last night. That's crazy from an LSU team.
I mean, you take it, you watch them all season, and they've been pretty consistent in how they have operated. Very explosive, running the ball, being able to throw the ball. Their RPO game has been deadly. And so, yes, you go back through the recent history, and that's what you've seen. But I think you listen to enough interviews and hear Coach Orgeron talk about how he needed to make a change and how he needed to open things up and how he needed to change the landscape of LSU football, and that's exactly what they did with finding a gym and Coach Brady and being able to kind of piece together an offense. Now, with that, they've got talent. They got talent. They got talented kids, and so they found that niche, and you be around that team, and took a visit with our kids, man, and there's a spirit around that bunch. So you pull it all together. I'm not surprised with what you see and what you see with that group.
And just a quick side note, if you are a Bengals coach and you have the possibility of taking Joe Burrow, how excited are you to get your hands on him and get to working with him?
You have to because of the intangible piece that he provides. I mean, he's a leader. He's a coach's son. And you hear that's a cliche, but what it means is he understands the game. He's disciplined. He studies it, and he respects the game enough to do it right. And so that's what you get when you get a coach's son. And so if I was a Bengals executive or somebody that was making that decision, I would be extremely excited to get a local kid at that position with all that talent, and it kind of fits the new head coach and his offensive scheme, trying to be wide open and kind of the system that he uses. And so I think the Bengals kind of got lucky with this, how everything played out.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's talk about that other playoff game. Ohio State left many plays to be made out there on the field. How tough is it that they had to come away with the loss after that?
It was disappointing because the better team didn't win, in my opinion. You had so many different opportunities from a red zone standpoint. I think they went 1 for 4 in the red zone, and just being able to put the touchdowns on the board. But I mean, with that said, though, my personal opinion, I hated that the referees played such a part in deciding a game to that magnitude, and so
that's tough.
It's very tough. It's disappointing that was the case, and so I may be a little biased being from Ohio, but I just hated that the two calls that I felt should have went the other way. That were major points in the game. They went against Ohio State and really changed the landscape of the game, both in the first half and in the second half.
Yeah. All right, well, real quick, I just want to talk about your Bearcats. Under Luke Fickell, the hallmark for the program, defense, running the football. What do you think is going to take from them to get it done on Thursday in the Birmingham Bowl?
Well, I'm excited for them to be able to push for win number 11, and just being able to do that is important. But you said it best. Running the football, you got a guy in Mike Warren III, and being able to play defense. Coach Freeman and Coach Fickell have those boys playing really good defense, and they do enough to get it done when it comes to an offensive standpoint. And so UC's always, their success, at least recently, has been built on running the football and stopping a run. And I think if I had to make a pick, I think they'll win. They'll win by a couple scores.
All right, Coach. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We'll be watching. We know the football season is coming down to an end, but we still got some good games left.
Absolutely.
So we'll be watching and hope to have you back on soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
All right, Coach. Thanks again. All right, coming up, we're talking hot stove with the Reds. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Reds are wheeling and dealing as 2020 approaches, and beat reporter Mark Sheldon stopped by this week to talk about what they're doing. Check out the conversation. The hot stove is cooking up. Reds making some moves this offseason. Joining me is MLB.com Reds reporter Mark Sheldon. Mark, Great to have you on. Thanks for joining me.
Nice to be here, Reggie. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so the Reds went out and made a splash right away, signing Mike Moustakas. What type of production do you expect him to have?
I think he's just going to be the guy that on the left side of the plate that's going to be a run producer. He's been averaging about 30 to 35 home runs a year the last 3 years. He's been in the postseason a lot. He's been in the World Series twice. He's won one with the Royals. And the one thing I kind of hear from a lot of people is that he's a born leader. He's a guy that will come into the clubhouse and not be afraid to lead the guys, maybe not necessarily in a rah-rah sort of way, but he can definitely tell younger players how to handle themselves in the clubhouse. And maybe one of the comparisons I get is Scott Rowland, what he did for the Reds when he came up here. Rowland was near the end of his career. Moustakas is only 31. He's got some good years left. So I think he's going to boost the offense, but they need more offense in addition to him to get where they need to go, which is they want the postseason.
Exactly. Fun fact, I covered Moose a little bit when I was in Wichita.
Oh, yeah?
He was playing for the Royals, and they were making that World Series run, but that's neither here nor there. Moving on.
He's a good dude.
He is. So they're trying to solidify the rotation as well. They signed Wade Miley, 2-year deal. It's relatively low risk there, but he had a good year last year starting off, kind of fizzled down the stretch of the season. What do the Reds expect from him?
They expect him to be a good, solid, middle to the end of the rotation guy. He fizzled a lot. The belief is in the last month of the season because he was tipping his pitches, and they seem to figure out where he went wrong, and they feel pretty good. The one thing about Wade Miley that made the Reds more attractive is that besides Moustakas having him here was Derek Johnson, the pitching coach, who kind of saved his career. He was at a bit of a crossroads when he left the American League. He was with the Orioles and the Red Sox, and just wasn't doing well. And Johnson taught him a pitch, and the new cutter, and he seemed to work it out. And he was very strong for them in that one season in Milwaukee, especially in the postseason. He really came on and then turned around and signed with the Astros, and he had a pretty good year until the last month.
Yeah. So, all right, with the addition of Miley, Trevor Bauer joined. Luis Castillo. You got
Sonny Gray.
So, all right, there have been some things that I've been reading on the Reds. People are calling them one of the best rotations in baseball. On paper, it looks that way, but how do you see it?
I agree. I think even without Wade Miley, the first four were as good as you'd want in baseball. You have two All-Stars last year having good seasons. DeSclafani showed he was healthy for the first time in a long time. And then you had Bauer, who was an All-Star in 18 and had a bad year, but I'm sure he's determined to be back this year, very strong. So I think it was a nice rotation to have. Now having another veteran and a left-hander at that in the 5 spot makes them a very good rotation going in, maybe one of the best in the National League.
So a lot of that depends, I'm sure, on Luis Castillo. He kind of turned into the staff ace last year. Do you expect him to replicate that success this next season?
I would think so. He fell off a little bit at the end of last year. He didn't have his strongest year. Gray kind of eclipsed him numbers-wise. But he seems to have a good demeanor about him, and he's got that really nasty changeup, and that was one of the best in baseball. It is one of the best in baseball, and I think as long as he has that pitch working, and his velocity seemed to come back up again last year as opposed to 2 years ago when it seemed to go down, I think that kind of the makeup and the stuff makes him a very good candidate to have a very strong year.
So you got the pitching rotation, got to shore up those bats. I will ask you about a bat that made the top of your decade list. You had Joey Votto 1, that dude BP, Brendan Phillips number 2, and Johnny Cueto number 3. How did you come about doing that list?
Well, we were all doing at MLB.com the best of the decades and doing various things like top home runs, top defensive plays. But when you get to the best players of the decade for the team, there really is only one person, and that's Joey Votto. I mean, he's been an MVP in 2010. He almost won an MVP in 2017. He battled back from a really bad injury in 2012. And started playing all 162 games twice in the decade. He's got some of the best numbers all around, best on-base percentage, some of the sabermetric numbers are off the charts, and he's always hit 300 or above for the decade and for his career, not to mention. So it's a no-brainer. He might be a Hall of Famer. I know a lot of Reds fans are sour on him after his last 2 rough years, but you are looking at a guy that will get Hall of Fame consideration when he's 5 years after he retires, and I wouldn't miss the boat on Joey Votto.
Any reaction has been positive, negative? What has been some of the reaction to this list?
Not too bad. Twitter is usually the harbinger of good or bad, and I haven't heard much bad. I think a few people would have liked to have seen Homer Bailey because of the 2 no-hitters, maybe get in the top 10. Maybe I was a little too high with Zach Cozart, but I think overall I thought it was a pretty fair list. They had some of the better pitchers of the decade. It had Aroldis Chapman in it, of course. Had Jay Bruce. I mean, I think everyone was pretty well represented throughout the decade.
All right, Mark. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. That stove is always hot, so we'll try to get you back on here soon, see what moves that they're making.
That sounds great. Thank you, and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year to you as well. All right, thanks to Mark Sheldon. Reds still players to make some moves this winter. We'll see how it all plays out. We're coming back to wrap up the show. Don't go away. Well, it's been real. It's been fun. It's been real fun, but we got to go. I'd like to thank Jim Breech, Rodney Heath, Mike Daniels, and Mark Sheldon for joining me tonight, and to my village who helped put this all together. Hope you enjoyed the show. Let's do it again next Sunday. Until then, thanks for watching. Have a good night and a very blessed week.